Stay tuned for tonight's adventure with the Fat Man.
Okay, here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whatever time of day it is, I hope it's good to be where you are, because I'm really excited to be here today. My name is Baltimore Fats, and we're going to the Y. Yes! Okay. Alright, so when last we left off, I was looking for the Y here on the 300 block of North Charles Street, because that is where the YMCA page on Wikipedia tells us it is, at least indirectly, by saying it's at the location of St. Peter's Church, Roman Catholic Church, 1770. When I looked that up, this did not make the cut the other day, but when I looked that up, it told me that it was on the 300 block of Charles Street. So that's what made me look for it in the 1822 map, right here. I guess I figure if it wasn't raised until 1840, it's going to be on here. But I couldn't find it. Like I said, I went through all the border. The building's not on there. So I went digging a little further after the show. I did find it on the, this is the 1799-1805 map, right? It's here in the references D, and I'll show you where that is. It's right here on Sharp Street and what is now, or what was then German Street, but I think this is part of Baltimore Street now. It's kind of weird the way this is set up over here now, but this was, German Street was eliminated after the fire. But it's interesting that this Sharp Street and right down here, this is where the convention center is, right on, you know, I go on the Sharp Street. This is where the parking garage for it is back here now. All right, so that is why I could not find it in 1822. It's in the wrong spot, so very curious for that. But from 1872 to 73, that's when this building was built. All right, 1872 to 73, they say, for this one. And now they mentioned that it had towers, and although you probably can't see it all that well from here. Yeah, here we go. This is rounded here. There was tower here, and I'm presuming here. Right, you can see the way the sidewalk is rounded here, so it's probably. But so the YMCA was at this building until 1907 when they moved it to this one. So they say by 1907 a cornerstone was laid. By 1907, not in 1907, but by. It's a very interesting choice of words, right? A cornerstone. Now, here's the interesting thing about this cornerstone, because I have a picture of it. All right, it says 1852 to 1907. Now, 1852 is when the YMCA is established in Baltimore. And so I don't know what happened in 1984 that they had someone go in and put 1984 on, maybe whatever the hotel was before. Because before it was the Hotel Indigo, it was some other hotel. But 1852 to 1907 would be the amount of time that the YMCA is in Baltimore when this building was opened in 1907. Okay, but before we look at the older pictures, I just want to show this real quick. Now, this is the grade that they have of the front of the building here. Right? You can see a little bit peeping out, a little bit more, and a little bit more going up to the main entrance here. And just as I showed on the side, yeah, well, let's just take a look, shall we? Okay, so now this picture is from about 1925. And we have a cop stand here. We're going to take a closer look at some of these features, right? We have a cop stand here. And we can see here here are those openings along the sidewalk there, 1925. Now, it doesn't appear to be that much different, right? I mean, maybe a little bit because they have probably redone the sidewalk in that time, I imagine. Right? All right, this is where that doorway is. Like, so there's like that ramp that went up here, and they converted this into a door in more modern times, I believe, because it's hard for me to tell because they have this car here. And this is something that's amazing about this building is every photograph, this slope is obscured in some way, shape, or form. It's really unbelievable. They definitely have added a ramp here, and there's beneath this window, I believe, is that doorway down. Right? And now all of this becomes regraded, I believe. Well, we're going to check that out as we go. Right, and of course, one thing that I notice is a lot of people notice about these old pictures is that somebody cropped this image this way, either in developing or after developing, Photoshop, something. Right? This is not what the original exposure was. Right? There's no way. All right, so we're going to look now at the next building that I don't, or the next picture. I don't have a year on this one, but something about it makes me think 50s, 60s. I don't know what it is, but that's what I think. And again, I noticed like the same obscuring here, almost like in an identical pattern. Right? I thought that was kind of noteworthy. Right? And so again, in this picture, you can see that the front sidewalk here is pretty much the same. But then look, again, on the side going down the hill, those windows are obscured. Right? And in this picture, there's definitely not a door here. All right, but who knows? What is that, trash? Is it garbage day on the hill? All right, but definitely obscured. And so I tried to recreate this picture. All right, and here's where the cop, or this is certainly a recreation of the 1925 one, because the cop stand would be here. All right. So I'm doing my best to recreate this picture. And what do I see but a flagpole coming out of the top? And somewhere I have a much better shot of this. All right, here it is. Nice big flagpole on the top of this corner here. And so when I see the way that those images have been manipulated, all right, cropped off here, it makes me wonder if maybe the wrong flag was flying from that flagpole. I don't know. That's just what I think there. And especially after what we're going to find out about the YMCA in this building. So let's go. Here we go. It's time to go to the Y. Okay, and so before we continue on with the full story of the YMCA, there are just a few other things about the building I want to touch base on real quick. And first is that going back to the earliest picture that I have, which is 1925 here, right? There's not a telephone pole, an electricity cable, anywhere near here. No telegraph wire, nothing. Right? Yet we look at this photograph, which I now know is like 1900 or 1901. All right, look at all the cable poles they have here, whether it's telephone, electricity, or what have you. I mean, just on this corner alone. I mean, it's everywhere. What a mess. Right? So, the YMCA building, I guess, in 1925, had its own independent electricity source. They were running it underground, maybe? I mean, I don't know. Did they do that in the 1920s and earlier? I don't know. It makes sense now when you go now and don't see a lot of power lines and things like that. They do underground stuff these days. But were they doing it back then? I don't know, because, I look at this one too, and I said, I think earlier I said, I think this is like 50s or 60s, maybe it's 30s, 40s. I don't know. It's hard to get a read on it. Because again, there's nothing to really date it. There's no telephone poles or wires, anything like that. Look, even on that older one, that 25 one, there's this thing here, some sort of sign. That's gone by this point, right? But, I don't see nothing like that around here. And even in the modern pictures that I take, there's no wires going anywhere near this building. But again, easier to understand today than, 100 years ago. And also regarding the cornerstone, right, I went on the hunt, and I could not find anything that happened to this building in 1984, other than, of course, that this is the same year that Ronnie Reagan pardons Whittaker Chambers. 1984. Now, also, of course, the book and so many other things. But I also like that I didn't notice this the last time, there are Stars of David put in on here. All right, here they are. And of course, as I pointed out, they are also on the side of the building, and I love this representation of it. The way it's kind of broken into like almost like these arrowhead kind of points, and the pentagram right in the middle there. This is a really cool representation of it. And that's of course is going to get more significant as the story goes, and we're going to talk more about what these other symbols are. And I got so many great suggestions. Definitely really tuning in on a few of them. That's been a lot of fun the last couple of days. All right, so that's going to be more in the next episode. I did get a shot of the front door. Before we move on with the history and stuff, I just wanted to point out this feature in that 1925 photograph. Okay, and so now in this one, really examining it closely, I can see something that is almost reminiscent of grating here on the sidewalk. And now I don't know, because it's so obscured going the full length, but there could be like grating here already in 1925, which would be amazing, because that would show that they had to trench that out or leave that trenched out with their construction, because presumably that would mean that they had to leave this open and trenched out from its construction in 1907. And I don't know, I think that's really interesting. And then lastly, I want to point out these three ghostly figures over there. It took me a while to see these guys. I don't know how often I looked at this picture before I found them, but they're kind of creeping me out. These three guys over here. What are they doing? Okay, so now moving on with the YMCA and its history. And it's very important to Baltimore too. And again, the way the story is coming together, it just gets more exciting to me by the day. It's ridiculous. All right, what do I want to do here? I want to do this. No, I don't. All right, so what was the YMCA? All right, the YMCA, as we briefly discussed, the Young Men's Christian Association, which aimed to put Christian principles into practice by developing a healthy body, mind, and spirit, right? And it was founded on June 6, 1844, by one Sir George Williams in London. Okay, and so here he is, knighted in 1894 by Queen Victoria. That was a very busy day for her. She must have been exhausted by the end of it. But lived to be 84, so he had a good long life, right? And he describes himself as a youth as wayward in a way. And then his family, and I love the way they phrase this here, for unknown reasons, his family sent him to Bridgewater to be an apprentice at Henry William Holmes's draper shop. So he becomes a draper. All right, and in 1837, he converts from Anglicanism to Congregationalism, right? And he joins the Zion Congregational Church and becomes an involved member. So here we have Zion, right, in association with the founder of the YMCA, and on the side of the building, of course, we have multiple Stars of David. Not to mention the name of the place is Indigo, and there's blue on the flag of Israel and so forth. All right, all coincidences. All right, so what's a draper? And a draper is, it's a retailer or wholesaler of cloth. Cloth merchant or haberdasher. And I think it's interesting that he was a draper, the founder was, and that today it's the Hotel Indigo. And indigo is indigo being a dye in textiles, and the role that textiles are playing in this modern pandemic with the masks that everyone has to wear. And so, although it doesn't say it in his wiki page, right, he must have been a member of the Worshipful Company of Drapers. Now, I know I've talked a little bit about the guilds in the past. All right, but I can't remember if I talked about the Drapers Guild or not. All right, and the Drapers Guild is one of the historic Great 12 livery companies. As a matter of fact, it's number 3. Right? It's in the big 3. Drapers are. Right, and I love its crest here, its seal or whatever this is. Right, it's got the spotted lion, right? It's got a crest here that has triple crowns that are actually rocket ships. And they have a ram on the top here. And I actually have an older version of this. Right, and here's the older one. You know, the lion not quite as stylized into a dragon or griffin as it becomes. Right, and this I thought was a unicorn at first, but maybe that's a lamb. You know, I don't know. And the crowns look a little more beehive-ish here, but that's probably due to the quality of the image. But I do like that it resembles rockets because I think about like the tale of outer space being made from whole cloth. They made it up from whole cloth right here. And also interesting in this time of the pandemic, right, and how the textile industry is benefiting. It doesn't hurt that where is it? That amongst the royalty who have been members of the company, 4 had not been expected to become a monarch at the time of their birth, but were later crowned. Princess Elizabeth, Queen Elizabeth II today. There she is. She's a draper, right? And the textile industry playing such an important part in all of this. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's really unbelievable. All right, and so let's get back to the YMCA. So like Williams, because although very involved, he really takes a back seat after the founding, as we'll see, right? And so let's get right to it. Right, so Georgie here, he had 11 friends, of course, 12, right? Just like the 12 investors that invested in the Hotel Indigo, right? Right, he was a draper, right? He was typical of the young men drawn to the cities by the Industrial Revolution. Of course he was. He was just a regular guy working in the textile factory, apprenticing, looking to become a member of the worshipful drapers, right? And he and his friends, they were concerned about the lack of healthy activities for young men in major cities because the main options were taverns and brothels. So you just had a bunch of young guys who wanted to get drunk and get laid. And so this was a problem for Williams and his friends. And so again, right, as it says on June 6, 66, right, they held the first meeting. All right, and that by 1845, they started a popular series of lectures, right, that went on to be held at Exeter Hall in London starting in 1848. They continued until 1865. And it's the basis of these lectures that really propels the YMCA. All right, and so I wanted to see if I could find any of them. And really all I could find was this. I'm sure they're out there somewhere, and I could probably find more at this webpage, but you have to, join. And I'm not about to do that. I'm not going to be a joiner inner today. And so, all right, it says the abstract of this rhetoric in mid-Victorian Britain, right? It says, in the early and mid-Victorian period, public pronouncements by evangelicals were often described as the antithesis of rational speech. The voice of science, by contrast, was routinely equated with the voice of reason. Science was reason, evangelicals were crazy. Cuckoo. And so it was against this backdrop that the fledgling Young Men's Christian Association inaugurated a popular series of lectures in 1845. Then it talks about the lectures here, right? And then it says, by investigating the ways in which the promotion of science was combined with religious exhortation in the YMCA lectures, this paper examines how evangelicals positioned themselves with respect to the growing cultural authority of science. Growing cultural authority. And now now the story's getting a little ahead of itself from the Master of Reality. Right now I'm into the 1840s when last I left off. I was still like in the 18 teens, and it wants me to skip ahead a lot here. But I was mentioning back there that, it was that time, that late 17th century, early 18th century in our narrative as they present it to us. It's around this time that they really started taking the science out of the religion, because the science was all in the religion up until this point. All right, and mostly written by Jesuits, the way I can tell. All right, they started taking it out around, the early 1800s, and by making it academic, they were giving it cultural authority, which is going to allow the easier transition for their technologies as they're getting ready to present them. Right? But I just think this sentence kind of says it all in terms of, what they're trying to do with the science and the spectroscopy and how they're trying to finagle this in to create this new option for the world everyone can buy into and everyone's going to need. And they can show everyone what they want everyone to see. Right? Okay. So allegedly a lot of these were published in pamphlets and in newspapers and stuff at the time. So I guess they're going to be out there. So hopefully I can find some of them somewhere down the line. But getting back onto the history. All right. So we're going 1848. They got the lectures rolling. They're starting to build a head of steam. And what they're really preaching is they're preaching something called this muscular Christianity. If you look close enough, you might find the origins of a lot of, or what some people might perceive as some of today's toxic male culture, if you buy into any of that. But it's here where it starts getting promoted in any real sort of way. Your physicalness and your masculinity. This is really where it starts to spread through the YMCA. All right. And so it's through these lectures that they're espousing the benefits of this muscular Christianity and fraternal brotherhood of Christianity through the YMCA. And it also acts as kind of its own orphan society as well, as we'll see. Right? And so they're doing this starting 1848 with their lectures, and they're getting more and more popular. Right. And it was because it was associated with industrialism, right? And the movement of young people to cities to work. The movement of young people to cities to work. Well, where were all the young people coming from that you could move them to cities to work? Right. And once they got there, they needed a place to go, right? Because you were moving them from somewhere else into the cities to work. Right. So they needed associations like the YMCA, places to stay. Like orphan asylum would be for the even younger. And now this is where it starts to get nuts. Because in part, thanks to using the Great Exhibition of 1851, that old chestnut, to spread the idea of the YMCA, by later that year, 1851, there were YMCAs in the United Kingdom, Australia, Belgium, Canada, France, Germany, the Netherlands, Switzerland, and the United States. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 countries. 1851 starts in a living room of 12 guys 7 years earlier. Right? All right. And they incorporate in 1851 as well. And this Anthony Ashley Cooper, the 7th Earl of Shaftesbury, he becomes the first president in 1851 until his death in 1855. So, think about that. That's like 34 years he's president of the YMCA. And so the story really takes off with him, and that's where we're going to pick up in part 3 with with the Earl of Shaftesbury, Anthony Ashley Cooper. There he is. All right. I hope you guys had fun with this one. I had a blast bringing it to you. Until the next one. Cheers.